My family called me a deadbeat dad for a baby that wasn't even mine. Yeah, that got awkward. So here's how my life went from completely normal to absolute dumpster fire in roughly 12 months. And before anybody asks, no, I did not get my friend's sister pregnant. I know how that sounds. That's the part that makes this whole thing so insane because if you hear the headline without the details, it sounds like I'm some dude trying to dodge responsibility after getting somebody pregnant. I get it. Honestly, if I were reading this about somebody else, I'd probably have questions too. But that's not what happened. Not even close. I knew this girl, Jenny, because she's my friend Dave's sister. I've known Dave for years. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, hung out with the same people, did all the normal dumb teenage stuff that you do when you have too much free time and absolutely no understanding of consequences. Jenny was always around. Not around me specifically, just around. You know how some people are part of your social orbit without actually being part of your life? That was Jenny. I'd see her. I'd say, hey, maybe we'd be in the same room at some point. That's it. No secret relationship. No flirting. No hookups. No drunken mistake. No, we both had too much to drink and woke up confused. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I had never slept with her. I'd never dated her. Hell, I'd barely even hugged her. So when she told me she was pregnant, and that I was the father, my brain basically stopped working. I remember just sitting there thinking, wait, what? No. Like, not even in an angry way at first. I genuinely thought there had to be some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe she had the wrong person. Maybe she meant somebody else. Maybe this was some bizarre joke that I wasn't understanding. I kept waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. She was serious. According to Jenny, we had been together. According to Jenny, I'd gotten her pregnant. According to my actual memory, none of that had ever happened. And that's when the first little alarm bell went off in my head. Not the giant screaming alarm yet. Just the tiny one. The little beep. Something is very, very wrong here. I told her there was no way I was the father. I wasn't rude about it. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't insulting her. I just said the obvious thing. We had never had sex. There was no possible way. And instead of stopping and saying, okay, maybe we should figure this out, she doubled down. She kept insisting again and again and again. And I'm sitting there thinking, am I supposed to suddenly remember an entire relationship? Did I black out for 6 months? Did somebody replace my memories? Because apparently, I'm the only person in this story who didn't receive the script. I asked for a paternity test. That seemed pretty reasonable to me. Actually, I thought it was the most reasonable thing anybody could suggest. If you're saying I'm the father and I'm saying I'm not, then test it. Done. Problem solved. Everybody goes home. Roll credits, except Jenny refused. That was when my confusion turned into actual suspicion. Because if you know I'm the father, why wouldn't you want proof? Why wouldn't you want the test? Why would you rather keep arguing with me than settle it scientifically? That made absolutely no sense. She kept trying to make it emotional. The baby needed me. I needed to take responsibility. I was abandoning my child. I was being selfish. I was hurting her. And I remember thinking, hold on, I'm not abandoning anybody. I'm refusing to accept responsibility for something I didn't do. Those are two wildly different things. But apparently, once somebody puts the word baby into a conversation, logic gets kicked out of the room. And then my parents found out. This is where everything really went off the rails. Because I thought my parents would be the people who looked at me and said, okay, let's figure this out. I thought they'd know me. They'd know my personality. They'd know my history. They'd know whether something like this sounded remotely like me. They didn't. They believed Jenny. Immediately. No hesitation. No, let's get the test. No, show us what happened. No, we know our son. Just immediate judgment. It was honestly impressive. Terrible, but impressive. My mom called me a disappointment. My dad called me irresponsible. They said I was acting like a deadbeat. They said they hadn't raised me to run away from my responsibilities. I kept trying to explain. I kept saying I didn't do this. I am not the father. There is no relationship. There was never a relationship. I wasn't even in the same state when she would have conceived. That last part should have ended the entire argument. It didn't. My parents basically shrugged. People make mistakes. That's what they said. People make mistakes. Okay, sure. But what kind of mistake involves me somehow having sex with somebody while physically being hundreds of miles away? Was I supposed to have teleported? Was there some kind of premium long-distance conception package I didn't know about? Because at that point, I was genuinely running out of explanations. And the more I tried to defend myself, the worse it got. My parents started saying I needed to man up. That phrase became a personal trigger. Man up. Take responsibility, step up, be a father. Every conversation was some variation of the same thing. Nobody wanted facts. They wanted a confession, and I wasn't going to give them one because I wasn't guilty. That should be an easy sentence. I'm not guilty. I didn't do it. But when enough people repeat the opposite thing long enough, you start questioning your own reality. That's what scared me. I knew what happened. I knew where I'd been. I knew Jenny and I had never been together, but I was surrounded by people acting like I was some pathological liar. So I started documenting everything. Travel records, work records, messages, dates, anything that could establish where I had been. It felt ridiculous. I felt ridiculous. Imagine having to build a case proving you weren't secretly sleeping with somebody. That was my life. And while I was doing all of this, Jenny was pregnant. Every week made things worse. My parents kept pushing me. They wanted me involved. They wanted me at appointments. They wanted me to acknowledge the baby. They wanted me to start planning for fatherhood. I refused. Not because I didn't care about the baby. The baby hadn't done anything. The baby wasn't responsible for any of this. I refused because I knew I wasn't the father. And I wasn't going to let pressure turn into a legal nightmare. That became the breaking point. My parents gave me an ultimatum. Either I accepted Jenny's claim and acted like the father, or they were done with me. I thought thought they were bluffing. I genuinely thought they'd cool off. I thought eventually somebody would say, okay, let's just wait for the baby and get the test. Nope, they disowned me. They actually did it. I was out. No family, no support, no place at holidays, no calls, no invitations, no nothing. I remember sitting alone afterward and feeling this weird combination of anger and disbelief. I was furious. Absolutely furious. But underneath that was something I didn't want to admit. I was hurt. Really hurt. Because when you're a kid, your parents are supposed to be the people who believe you. Even when you're an adult, some part of you still expects that. You can be 30 years old and paying your own rent and handling your own life and still have that little voice in the back of your head going, Mom and Dad have my back. Mine didn't. They picked a story over me. That messed me up more than I wanted to admit. I kept going though. What else do? You wake up, you go to work, you eat something, you pretend you're okay, you go to bed, then you do it again. Meanwhile, Jenny's pregnancy continued. And then the baby was born. That was when everything finally became undeniable. The paternity test happened. The results came back. I wasn't the father. 0%. Nothing. No relationship. No connection. No possibility. The exact thing I'd been saying for months. And when I saw those results, I swear I felt every emotion at the same time. Relief, anger, sadness, vindication, exhaustion. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to sleep for a week. Mostly, I wanted somebody to explain why it had taken this long. I sent the results to my parents. I figured finally they'll understand. Finally, they'll apologize. Finally, they'll realize they were wrong. My phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, emails, apologies, begging, money. My dad even sent me cash. Apparently, this was supposed to help. I kept it. Yeah, I know. Petty. Whatever. I kept it. Maybe that was wrong. Maybe it was immature. But after everything, I didn't care. That money wasn't buying forgiveness. It was basically a tiny reimbursement for the emotional demolition of my life. I wasn't forgiving them. Not yet. Because the test didn't make me suddenly forget what happened. It didn't erase the months of being called a deadbeat. It didn't erase being disowned. It didn't erase sleeping alone in an apartment wondering why your own parents don't believe you. It didn't erase anything. And then Jenny started telling people the test was fake. I swear to God, fake. She claimed I'd manipulated the results. Somehow, I still don't know how. Apparently, I had the secret skills necessary to infiltrate a laboratory, alter genetic data, manipulate professionals, and create an official result proving I wasn't the father. Sure. Absolutely. Meanwhile, I was struggling to remember my own password. But yeah, master criminal, that was me. The rumors spread. People started looking at me differently. I'd go to the grocery store and catch people staring. Someone actually asked me why I wasn't taking care of my kid. I said it wasn't my kid. They said Jenny said otherwise. And that's when I learned something really ugly about people. A lot of people don't care what's true. They care what's interesting. A pregnant woman saying a man abandoned her? Interesting. A DNA test saying he isn't the father? Boring. People would rather believe the dramatic version. It gives them something to talk about. And my parents weren't helping. They kept trying to reconnect. They wanted me to come over for dinner. They wanted to talk. They wanted things to go back to normal. Normal. That word made me insane. There was no normal. Normal was gone. They had destroyed it. You don't get to throw somebody out of your life and then invite them back to dinner like the last 6 months were a scheduling conflict. That's not how trust works. Trust isn't a light switch. You don't flip it back on because you're uncomfortable with the consequences. My dad tried to buy me a car, a whole car. He offered me a new car if I would come back. I remember staring at that message thinking, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Take the keys and suddenly forget everything? Smile for the family photo? Maybe throw in a heartfelt speech about how Dad's purchase restored my childhood? No, I didn't answer. Then Jenny started contacting people I knew. Old friends, people from my past, even my ex. My ex-girlfriend Samantha suddenly messaged me. We hadn't spoken in years. She told me Jenny had contacted her and started talking about me. I just stared at my phone. At that point, it felt like my entire life had become a group project. Nobody had asked me to join. Everybody was discussing me. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody had a version of the story. And somehow I was the only person who wasn't allowed to leave the group chat. I finally snapped. Not violently, not dangerously, just emotionally. I was done, completely done. I blocked Jenny everywhere. I cut contact with my parents. I told Dave I couldn't be around his family anymore. That one hurt. Dave hadn't done anything, but I couldn't separate the situation from the people involved anymore. Every time I saw that family, I remembered everything. The accusation, the pregnancy, my parents, the rumors, the test, the humiliation. So I walked away, and for a little while things got quiet. I thought that was it. I thought maybe now I could finally rebuild. I was wrong, because my parents decided that if they couldn't reach me directly, they'd go through everybody else. Old friends started messaging me, distant relatives, people I barely knew. They all had the same story. Your parents are worried. Your parents miss you. You should give them another chance. You need to forgive. Family is important. I swear I wanted to print all of those messages and wallpaper my bathroom with them. Maybe then I'd at least get some entertainment while brushing my teeth, because none of those people knew what had happened. They knew what my parents told them. That's it. And my parents weren't telling the story accurately. They were telling the version where they were devastated parents trying to help a troubled son. That part was convenient. Very convenient. I wasn't troubled. I was angry. There is a difference. Then they contacted my boss. That was the line. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was harassment. My boss pulled me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. I looked uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to be having that conversation. He told me my parents had called because they were concerned about me. I wanted to crawl under the desk. Imagine trying to explain to your employer that your parents think you're mentally unstable because you refuse to pretend you fathered a child that isn't yours. I explained everything. Luckily, my boss was reasonable. He understood. But I went home that night furious. Not sad, not confused, furious. Because my parents weren't just hurting me anymore. They were reaching into my work, my friendships, my reputation, my entire life. I realized something that night. If I kept responding emotionally, they'd keep controlling the situation. Every accusation pulled me into another argument. Every message demanded a response. Every rumor forced another explanation. They were setting the pace. I was reacting. So I stopped. I documented everything. I talked to a lawyer. I started protecting myself legally. That was not something I ever imagined I'd have to do against my parents. I never thought I'd be sitting in a lawyer's office, explaining why I needed legal protection from the people who raised me. It felt disgusting. It felt surreal. It also felt necessary. Eventually, there were court orders restricting contact. And then, because apparently my life had decided subtlety was dead, my car got vandalized. Somebody scratched liar into the side. I didn't know who did it. I had suspicions. Strong ones. But I wasn't going to make accusations without proof. So I filed a report. I installed cameras. I changed routines. I parked somewhere safer. I became cautious. Paranoid, maybe. But after everything, I wasn't taking chances. Eventually, the legal restrictions were in place. The calls stopped. The messages stopped. The random people stopped showing up in my life. And suddenly there was silence. Real silence. It felt weird. At first, I didn't know what to do with it. I had gotten so used to chaos that peace felt suspicious. I'd wake up and think something must be coming. Nothing came. I'd check my phone. Nothing. I'd go to work. Nothing. I'd come home. Nothing. It was beautiful. I started sleeping again. I started laughing again. I started remembering who I was before all of this. Then my parents sued me. Because apparently peace was too much to ask. I opened the letter and saw that they were suing me for emotional distress. Their argument was basically that I had caused them severe emotional suffering by cutting them out. I read it twice. Then 3 times. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because what else do you do when your parents sue you? Because you stopped talking to them after they disowned you? I called my lawyer. She was stunned. We went through everything. The paternity test, the messages, the contact attempts, the legal restrictions, the harassment, the timeline, everything. And then the lawsuit became another thing I had to survive. More paperwork, more appointments, more stress, more money, more reminders that my family had somehow turned a lie about a pregnancy into a full legal disaster. The court date came. I showed up. My parents tried to present themselves as the victims. That part almost made me laugh. They talked about how much they loved me, how they'd always supported me, how devastated they were when I cut them off, how they wanted their son back. I sat there thinking, seriously? You disowned me. You literally told me I wasn't part of your family. Now you're shocked I believed you? That's not how this works. My lawyer presented the evidence. The paternity test, the history, the contact, the restrictions, the harassment, the timeline. The judge wasn't buying their story. The case was thrown out. My parents had to cover my legal fees. Technically, I won. I didn't feel like I won. I felt tired. That's the thing nobody tells you about surviving something horrible. You don't always feel victorious afterward. Sometimes you just feel empty. Sometimes winning means you get to go home and finally stop fighting. That's what it felt like. I went home. I sat on my couch, and I realized I hadn't had a family problem in a few hours. That was my definition of success. Pathetic, but real. Then my parents sent another letter. They said they were sorry. They wanted me back. They wanted to fix everything. They said they loved me. I believed that they loved me. That's what made everything harder. I never thought they didn't love me. I thought their love had become so tangled up with control and fear and pride that they were capable of hurting me while genuinely believing they were doing the right thing. That's terrifying. Because evil is easy. You can walk away from evil. But when somebody loves you and still destroys your trust, what do you do with that? I didn't know. I still don't. So I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. And then came the reunion. I found out from my cousin Melissa. My parents were planning this huge family reunion. Apparently it was going to be a reconciliation, a fresh start. They'd invited relatives, friends, people I hadn't seen in years, and they had apparently told everybody I'd be there. I hadn't agreed to anything. I hadn't been consulted, but sure, why not? Let's just announce my attendance at a family event without telling me. What could possibly go wrong? The entire thing felt like an ambush. They were counting on social pressure. They wanted me surrounded by people. They wanted everybody watching. They wanted me to either forgive them publicly or look like the heartless son who refused to reconcile with his grieving parents. It was manipulation with a catering budget. I wasn't going. That was it. I wasn't going. I sent one final message explaining that I knew about the reunion and would not attend. I said if they wanted a relationship with me, they had to respect my boundaries. No ambushes. No pressure. No relatives acting as messengers. No pretending nothing happened. I expected another explosion. Instead, my dad left a voicemail. He said I was tearing the family apart. He said my grandparents would be disappointed. He said the reunion was supposed to be a fresh start. I listened to it once, then again. Then I deleted it because I knew exactly what was happening. The guilt was back. Same trick, different wrapping paper. I didn't respond. The reunion happened without me. And apparently it was awkward. Very awkward. People expected me to show up. I didn't. Then relatives started asking questions. Why wasn't I there? Why hadn't I been told? Why had there been a lawsuit? Why had my parents been contacting my employer? Why was there a paternity test? Why was there a protective order? And apparently, once people started asking questions, my parents couldn't keep every part of the story straight. That's what finally changed things. Not me. Not some dramatic speech. Questions. Simple questions. Questions my parents had spent a year avoiding. A few relatives started reaching out to me. I didn't answer most of them. I wasn't interested in rebuilding an entire family network overnight. I'd learned my lesson. People could say they were sorry. They could say they finally understood. They could say they'd heard the truth. That didn't mean I owed them access. Trust takes time. And I'm okay with that now. I'm actually okay with it. That's the weirdest part. A year ago, I would have done anything to get my family back. Anything. I would have explained myself until my voice disappeared. I would have begged. I would have apologized for things I didn't do. I would have accepted blame just to stop the fighting. Now? No, absolutely not. I don't want the old relationship back. Not as it was. Because the old version required me to keep sacrificing myself. And I'm done doing that. I still love my parents. That's probably the most annoying part. I wish I could say I hate them. It would be easier. Hatred is clean. Love is messy. I can love them and still refuse to see them. I can miss them and still keep them blocked. I can remember good childhood memories without using those memories as evidence that I should tolerate bad behavior now. Both things can be true. My parents loved me. My parents hurt me. They were wrong. They damaged our relationship. They may never fully understand how much. And I don't have to spend the rest of my life waiting for them to understand. That's the part I'm finally getting. Closure doesn't always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes closure is just realizing you don't need them to admit it. I know what happened. I know what I lived through. I know I didn't get Jenny pregnant. The DNA test proves it. I know my parents disowned me. They did it. I know they tried to get other people involved. They did that too. I know they contacted my boss. I know they sued me. I know they tried to force a reconciliation. None of that needs their permission to be true. And once I accepted that, something changed. I stopped defending myself. That was huge. I stopped trying to convince everybody. If somebody believed the rumors, okay. If somebody wanted to think I was the villain, fine. If somebody wanted to hear my side, I'd tell them once. Once. Not 47 times. Not until they approved of me. Not until they gave me permission to feel wronged. Once. Then I'm done. Because I don't have to win every argument. I don't have to correct every rumor. I don't have to attend every family gathering. I don't have to answer every message. I don't have to accept every apology. And I definitely don't have to pretend something didn't happen just because pretending would make everybody else more comfortable. My life is quieter now. A lot quieter. And honestly, I love it. I wake up. I work. I see friends. I travel. I eat. I watch stupid shows. I complain about stupid things. I spend money on stupid things. Normal stuff. Beautifully boring stuff. I didn't realize how much I'd missed boring. Boring is incredible. Nobody is accusing me of anything. Nobody is calling my boss. Nobody is sending relatives after me. Nobody is trying to convince me that I'm responsible for something I didn't do. I can just exist. That's freedom. Not some huge dramatic escape. Just waking up and realizing you're not bracing for impact anymore. Sometimes I still get angry. Sometimes something reminds me of that year and, I feel the whole thing all over again. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had simply believed me. If they'd said, okay, let's wait for the test. Maybe we'd still be a family. Maybe none of this would have happened. That's the thought that hurts the most, because it could have been so simple. One test. One little bit of patience. One decision to trust their own son. Instead, everybody chose chaos. And I paid for it, but I'm not paying forever. That's where I draw the line. I'm not spending the next 10 years trying to earn back a place in a family that was willing to throw me out over an accusation. If they want me someday, they'll have to meet me where I am, not where I used to be, not where they want me to be, where I am. And where I am is cautious. I'm slower to trust. I'm more protective of my time. I notice manipulation faster. I don't automatically assume family means safe. I don't confuse guilt with responsibility anymore. And honestly, I don't think those are bad things. Maybe I'm more cynical. Fine, I'll take cynical. Cynical gets 8 hours of sleep. Cynical locks the door. Cynical doesn't sign things because somebody says, but we're family. Cynical reads the paperwork. Cynical asks questions. Cynical gets the test. Cynical keeps receipts. Apparently that's what adulthood looks like after you've been burned. I wish I didn't have to learn it this way, but I did. And I'm still here. That's something. My parents may never understand. Jenny may never admit what happened. Some relatives may always believe the version they heard first. Whatever. I'm done trying to control that. People are allowed to misunderstand me. They are not allowed to control me. That's the difference. So yeah, that's my life now. The pregnancy wasn't mine. The accusation wasn't true. The test proved it. My parents disowned me, then begged me to come back, then tried to buy my forgiveness, then contacted people around me, then contacted my boss. Then I got legal protection. Then they sued me. Then they lost. Then they tried to force a family reunion. And somehow, after all of that, I'm the one who supposedly needed to make peace. Absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10 family dysfunction. Would not recommend. But here's the thing. I don't feel like I lost anymore. Not completely. I lost people. I lost trust. I lost time. But I found myself again. And that sounds cheesy. I know. I hate that it sounds cheesy. I want to throw a tomato at myself for saying it, but it's true. Before all this, I thought keeping the peace was the same thing as being a good person. Now I know better. Sometimes keeping the peace just means you're the person absorbing all the damage. Sometimes saying no is the healthy choice. Sometimes walking away is the most honest thing you can do. And sometimes the people calling you selfish are just angry because you're no longer available for them to use. That's where I'm at. I'm not waiting for an apology. I'm not waiting for a reunion. I'm not waiting for some perfect final conversation where everybody cries and hugs and admits I was right. Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. I don't care anymore. Okay, that's a lie. I care a little. I'm human. Of course I care, but I don't need it. That's the important part. I don't need my parents to admit I was telling the truth. I don't need Jenny to admit she lied. I don't need every relative to understand. I don't need the town to apologize. I don't need anybody to hand me a certificate saying, congratulations, you were right the whole time. I know. That's enough. And every day that passes without another disaster, I feel a little more like myself. Maybe that's the real ending. Not revenge. Not reconciliation. Not some giant family showdown. Just peace. Just a life where my phone doesn't make my stomach drop. A life where I don't have to explain myself. A life where I get to make decisions because they're right for me, not because somebody is threatening to withdraw their love. I used to think being disowned meant I had been rejected. Now I look at it differently. They rejected the version of me who wouldn't obey them. And that version of me needed to exist. He needed to say no. He needed to stop apologizing. He needed to stop begging. He needed to stop proving. He needed to walk away. So I did. And yeah, it hurt. It still hurts sometimes. But I'd rather hurt while living honestly than feel comfortable while living inside somebody else's lie. That's the truth. The only truth I really need anymore. And honestly, after everything that happened, I'm good with that. I'm not looking back. Not today. Maybe not ever. I've got my own life now. And for the first time in a very long time, it actually feels like mine. And now, oopsie doopsie time, because apparently after watching this man get falsely accused, disowned, dragged through gossip, legally harassed, sued, and then basically forced to rebuild his entire life from scratch. My first thought is somehow, wait, did we just gloss over the fact that his parents apparently went from "you are dead" to us to "please come home, here's money, here's a car, here's a lawsuit, here's a family reunion"? Like they were cycling through every possible bad idea in the parental handbook? Because what? Like respectfully, what the hell was the game plan here? I need somebody to sit these people down with a whiteboard. Step 1, believe Jenny without evidence. Step 2, disown your son. Step 3, discover DNA exists. Step 4, panic. Step 5, send money. Step 6, offer a car. Step 7, contact his friends. Step 8, contact his ex. Step 9, call his boss. Step 10, get legally restricted from contacting him. Step 11, sue him. Step 12, throw a family reunion without asking him. Step 13, act shocked when he doesn't show up. Girl, sir, ma'am. At what point did everybody involved decide, you know what would really repair this relationship? More drama. And I'm sorry, but the dad offering him a car absolutely sent me. Because imagine being the son. Your father has basically spent months telling you that you're a horrible person. Then the DNA test proves you're right. Then instead of sitting down and saying, son, we completely failed you, he's like, so anyway, what if I bought you a Honda? Sir, this is not a dealership. You cannot trade in emotional trauma for upgraded trim. And the mom wanting a family dinner afterward? Girl, no. You don't get to serve mashed potatoes on top of unresolved psychological damage and call it reconciliation. I would be sitting at that dinner like, pass the rolls, and also explain the restraining order. Because that's the thing that really gets me. He wasn't asking them to solve everything overnight. He wasn't demanding some giant public apology. He just wanted them to believe him. That's it. The bar was underground. They still brought a shovel. And Jenny? Oh, Jenny, I'm sorry. But if you accuse someone of fathering your child and then refuse the test proving it, you've already created a giant blinking neon sign that says, something is wrong here. Then the test comes back. Not his kid. And instead of going, oh my God, I was wrong, it's suddenly, the test is fake, ma'am. Please. At that point, we're not even in reality anymore. We're in DLC. We're in the bonus content. We're unlocking secret levels of nonsense. And somehow this guy still kept functioning. That's what gets me. He went to work, paid bills, got legal help, documented everything, tried to stay sane. Meanwhile, his family was apparently running a 24-hour misinformation campaign. Honestly, I think the biggest plot twist is that he didn't completely lose his mind. Because I would have been sitting in my apartment eating cereal straight from the box like, you know what? Everybody can go to hell. I'm getting a cat. And actually, yeah. That's probably the correct ending.